The views expressed on this program are those of the commenters alone. They do not represent the views or opinions of Valley News Live, our parent company, or our advertisers.
Welcome back to Point of View, where we present all sides of the story, including yours. Tonight, we're taking a closer look at the issues at Dickinson State University. Last Friday, an audit showed hundreds of international students got degrees they didn't earn. That same day, University Administrator Doug LaPlante died by taking his life. North Dakota University System Chancellor Bill Gatz says no immediate discipline is planned for any DSU employees because of diploma problems. Chris Berg, though, host of the Chris Berg Show on AM 1100 The Flag, invited Chancellor Gatz to be a guest in the Hot Box to explain what's going on, but he canceled this morning. Instead, Chris sat down with the executive director of the North Dakota Taxpayers Association. He's talking about the Dickinson State situation and accountability within the university and the North Dakota university system.
This has been going on now since 2003. We had the inflation of enrollment numbers. They're saying via President McCallum. Now you've got the situation with the international students. So bring us up to speed, if you will. What took place on Friday with this internal audit? And obviously most people are saying that's the link as to why this dean, the gentleman, actually took his life. Administrator Doug LaPlante took his own life on Friday.
Well, we had the initial audit report from the North Dakota State Auditor that came out after the last 3 months since President McCallum was pushed out, and D.C. Costin, who previously was a vice president at NDSU, came in the interim to take over, and they started looking at these things, working with the auditor, and they came to the conclusion that the activities going on at the university were much broader than first reported, much broader than the enrollment scandal, and much broader than the scholarship scandal, which we knew about in August and were reported in the media in August. And there was very good evidence that this was going to go further. We didn't know how much further, but now we are seeing that this whole episode has yet to resolve itself, and we don't know what's coming down the line because there are so many federal agencies now involved. You've got not only the U.S. Department of Education from an education standpoint investigating this, but you've got FBI and Homeland Security and immigration officials. Yes, Homeland Security is looking at the immigration status of a lot of these students that are still on campus, because if you look at it, the student visas that these students were given require them to be enrolled in a school, and if the school improperly enrolled them, then technically they are in violation of U.S. immigration law. And so we've got federal immigration issues here, and we've got national security issues.
One of the big questions is, so who, if anybody, should be disciplined at DSU or in the higher ed system? Right now, Chancellor Bill Gatz is saying nobody. We're going to find out who should be disciplined, if anybody should be. Also, what's next for Dickinson State University? Stay with me right here in the Hot Box. Welcome back to the Hot Box. We're talking about the scandal taking place at Dickinson State University. With me this evening, the executive director of the North Dakota Taxpayers Association, Dustin Gawrylow. Dustin, obviously on Friday or early this week, yesterday, Bill Gatz, the chancellor for NDUS, basically says no discipline planned at DSU. Is he kidding us or what?
Well, I would certainly hope that that's not his reaction. You know, that's what was reported. I think that he, like most people, understand that there's more to be dug up. We don't know how far this goes. We don't know if this goes to other campuses around the state. We've got some suspicions that it could go to NDSU or Minot State, and that has not been resolved. What we need is a comprehensive task force from either the Attorney General or the auditor or maybe even the governor himself to look at these situations and get things clarified, because right now we need to know what the situation is before we know how to fix it.
Dustin, you just mentioned this might be taking place at NDSU or maybe even Minot State University. What evidence or thought process or anything do you have to make that kind of statement?
Well, we know that the Confucius Institutes were looking at both Dickinson State University and North Dakota State University as places to put their programs. And I don't have the latest information as far as where the status of NDSU's Confucius Institute is, but we know that part of the announcement on Friday was that Dickinson State was going to abandon those efforts, and that was a long-standing plan over the last 2 years to put that in place in Dickinson. So these other universities have been approached and have been part of these programs. So is a speculation that it could be beyond Dickinson State, but we know that there are also considerations of the original enrollment issues at other campuses. Those are widely considered to be widespread at UND and other campuses.
Wait.
So this could be very well be a systematic issue.
So you've got no facts here about the Confucian Institutes. You're making speculation, but you're talking about other enrollment issues at other universities. What do you mean specifically?
Well, there has been for longstanding issues about online students and how campuses count those students. They are supposed to count them as a separate type of student, but there has often been a ambiguity when it comes to how those are listed. And so there's been legislative research into this as far as whether online students are being counted as regular students, in-classroom students, because the costs associated with those two types of students is very different. And so over the last several sessions, there has been an effort to clarify what is going on these various campuses, and it has been a long time coming as far as getting those numbers, because the universities have been reluctant to even pass those on to the legislators who pay their bills.
What comes next to try to fix this situation, remedy it, and hopefully get it behind us?
Well, all these problems in the university system for the last 10 years have been a result of the fact that in the 90s, the legislature abdicated its authority to both the Board of Higher Education and the Education Roundtable. Those two entities have developed the type of rules and policies that have been put in place in higher ed over the last 10 years, and it really has resulted in a reduction of accountability to legislators, to the executive branch, and to the taxpayers and voters. And what we need is a system that re-implements those checks and balances, really, to ensure that our tax dollars and our student tuition dollars are being used properly. Right now, we have a branch of the government that believes that it's not accountable to anyone, and that it can just take the dollars that the state legislature gives it and do whatever it wants.
Dustin, thanks so much for your time and being in the hot box with me tonight. Three things I want to touch on with you. Number one, 20% of North Dakota's budget goes to higher education. I think all of us would agree that this is obviously a good investment, or could be a good investment, but why not make it more transparent? Let's get a better idea of how this 20% of the budget is ultimately being utilized. Number two, the class of 2010, 2011 college graduates, the most college debt ever in the history of America. Students right now are being buried in college debt. Number three, a man takes his life due to what's happening at Dickinson State University. Couple things to think about tonight. One, is it time to have the Board of Higher Education in North Dakota be more accountable to its citizens? And two, do we have our priorities straight? Is it time now to finally put the Board of Higher Education on the ballot rather than the Fighting Sioux nickname?
All right, well, what do you think about this? Who should be held accountable with everything that's been going on around the state and there? Well, Rhonda says, this is ridiculous. Someone needs to be held accountable for this. Unfortunately, this is not the only area where we are letting, she says, quote, international people get things they shouldn't. Then Brandon says this about the Board of Higher Ed. He says they are wasting all their time on the Fighting Sioux issue, and something like this, it slips right through with no consequences. You must be joking me. A very hot issue. But I will say this, Adam and Madeline, thank you very much for the Happy Valentine's Day.